Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing. We have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, directed by Mel Stewart. We have 2005's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Tim Burton. And finally, we have newly released Wonka, directed by Paul King. So it's going to be a candy-filled episode, folks. Stay tuned and enjoy. Mr. Vincent Daly, how we doing, buddy?
Tommy boy, how's it going?
It's going okay. On this side of the table, how was your Wonka week?
A little too sweet for my taste. Yeah, I mean, listen, I've never been huge into these movies.
Okay.
I had a huge amount of nostalgia for these movies, but it was nice just to have a 3 slot, especially with all the craziness with the holiday season. So.
Yeah, we have so many movies coming up. We have a super episode in 2 weeks.
Right. So super, we don't know how super it is.
Legitimately,
it's in the lab.
It is a super episode. But with all this, I'm glad that we just did these 3. They're very good on their own.
They were kind of Christmas in a lot of ways, especially that Burton one. Christmas feeling to it. So
especially the Burton one. Okay, that surprises me. But they're all kind of 3 very different films as well.
Yeah,
you know. So okay, I don't know. As a kid, I watched the original a few times.
Okay,
so it was pretty fresh with me. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory was always scared to see.
Scared?
Never wanted to see it.
This is the Burton one.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm not the biggest Tim Burton guy, you know. He's always just slightly weird and spooky and scary.
Sure. And that is definitely a slightly weird and spooky movie.
And Wonka, I almost saw late last night.
Okay.
But didn't get there. Because I have some interest in it. I like Timmy.
Yeah, sure.
Hugh Grant, it turns out, hated playing the role and didn't like it, didn't enjoy. And that kind of...
He's barely in it, too. He's like supporting of supporting.
Yeah, from what I could... For how long down he was when it comes to the credits.
Yeah.
It almost made me appreciate the trailer. Because I'm assuming that the trailer really... you don't get a sense of the film at all.
Yeah,
which is a good thing.
Yeah.
But, okay, all right. So any opening notes, or do we just take this magical tour?
Come with me and you'll see.
All right, let's jump. We are in 1971. It's crazy how long it's been. It's over 50 years.
Oh, yeah.
Now this has been in our culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is based on a book. So it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I think everybody knows the name. I would be surprised if a lot of people our age actually hasn't seen it at this point.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So everyone knows it. Everyone knows some memes about it,
You have hit the nail on the head of what I think about all 3 of these movies. Online fans of especially this one specifically want to put it on an untouchable pedestal, never to remake it. It's a children's movie though at its heart.
Oh, it's rated G too.
Exactly. So updating it for modern audiences, I'm totally fine with, and that's on top of me not really having a lot of nostalgia for it. I'm cool with them touching it every 20 years or so.
I'm with you. I'm not I don't have a huge love for this, for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Sure.
I don't know. It kind of bothers me when they touch it.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see what you have to say about it. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Yeah.
But how do we like this 1971 version?
Well, it is a classic, without a doubt. One of the first classics to be adapted by the author Roald Dahl from his 1964 hit children's book Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Following that as well, a few years later, we have Charlie and the Glass Elevator. Many, and I really mean many, consider this to be timeless, from the wonderful concept to fantastic music and probably most of all, Gene Wilder's aloof performance, which has kind of cemented itself into a lot of Hollywood history here.
Yeah.
This first Willy Wonka is a classic that nobody wants to have redone, but I feel differently about it. Without a lot of nostalgia for the story, like I said, folks, I see how each of these films are dated, even the new one in ways, which is odd to say. But the reality is, it is a kids' movie first, and occasionally that means you have to update things to make sure that there is actual interest from your waning attention of the kid demographic. Mel Stewart directs here and is probably not a name we'll be revisiting anytime soon. His career is really hard to track. There's a lot of producing. He does mostly documentaries pre-Willy Wonka, and then he does TV producing post-Willy Wonka. The story goes that his daughter was actually the one to bring him the idea after reading the book, which I think shows in the film. The film really does have a focus on kid wonder, childish wonder.
Yeah, definitely.
The Burton one definitely loses. This new one, I wouldn't say it loses it, but it kind of has different priorities, which we'll get into. And unlike the other two movies this week, the first half of its runtime focuses on the real world that exists around Wonka. And in doing so is probably the best at building that anticipation of seeing him on screen for the first time. And I feel like that is what's so magical about this. I feel like watching this movie and how I even remembered it as a kid, I always said to myself in my mind, this first half's real boring. First half is you skip to basically get to inside the chocolate factory. Now I see how important that is to pay off Wonka coming out and in tandem with Wilder's performance, which is excellent.
How long would you say that takes?
I think it's I don't have an exact time stamp, but
it does take some time.
It's at least like 45 minutes. It's like a good half of the movie, and this is also shorter than the 2005 and the current one.
Hour 40, which sounds great. I was shocked it wasn't over 2 hours, just because of how many scenes there are and there's things that you remember from the film.
Absolutely, so many scenes dedicated to each of the kids and their stories and finding the ticket and the world and pandemonium over Wonka and whatnot, and so. And then the musical scenes, which are not quick at all. I mean, we got how many Oompa Loompa songs? It's ridiculous. So I think it's silly to summarize the story here. That's so well known, but certain elements are portrayed differently from film to film. So I think it's important to key in on that. The framework of Charlie seeking one of 5 golden tickets is set, but the gravity of Wonka throwing this context is much, much larger in scope. We see, like I said, pandemonium in the real world as more than just children are after this golden ticket. And time is put on that to kind of tell the story of how amazing it is that these 5 children, find this. The hold Wonka has on the entire world is incredible, and I feel like that is what is so effectively communicated in this first half, first third of the film.
That wonder, just that kid energy, of wanting and needing that, just that vibe.
Absolutely, and so much of it is in great kind of dry British humor. We have like little sketches in this beginning half of the film that show that adults are just as crazed around Wonka and finding this golden ticket as the kids are, which is great. Part of what makes the first half so enjoyable, the ramp up. It also sets the stage for our expectations of characters. Not knowing whether anyone has hidden intentions is something that this film juggles perfectly. And an example is in the wicked-looking Mr. Slugworth that is whispering in all the winners' ears moments after they are getting interviewed. But in comparison to our other 2 films, this is much more subtle intentionally, and it's key to why we get our best Wonka, is that subtlety. Even without being a huge fan of the film, this is without a doubt Gene Wilder's greatest role, I think, with a legendary acting story around his method and approach. Now, once again, kind of cemented into Hollywood history. It's probably the biggest piece of pop trivia around the film by this point, but the story goes that Wilder would only do the role if he could come out with a cane in his first reveal. And the purpose was to drive home the point that we as the audience cannot trust anything that Wonka says.
I didn't know if I knew that was.
Oh, really?
I remember hearing that story of he wanted the cane. I didn't realize that was the story.
Yeah, it's to create this directional, this kind of misdirect in what exactly we expect to. Is Wonka telling the truth? Is he evil? Is he good? And that subtlety is why the balancing act is so perfect here.
Did you still feel, as a kid watching this, I always felt uneasy watching it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I was weirded out by the Oompa Loompas.
Oh, I'll tell you exactly where I was weirded out is the LSD boat scene. But we'll get into it.
The boat scene. I mean, the girl turning into a massive blueberry.
Oh, sure.
I mean, just the weird
body
stuff
horror
that happens.
Cronenberg, even.
You don't ever feel. You don't ever feel settled, and it totally comes through as a kid.
Yeah.
That's cool that was his goal, though, from the start. Before you see anything with him, he wants to drop the breadcrumbs a little bit for you.
Exactly, because that's where the mystery was for at least Wilder, and he said that is the only way that he's going to do this. So
wow,
yeah,
yeah, and I think you're right. I had to think when you were like, I think this is his best role or biggest well-known role. And it's just like, oh, yeah, it is. I felt like I had to think because then you have, what's the comedy?
Blazing Saddles, Young
Frankenstein scene.
Yep.
But he is Willy Wonka, I guess.
Yeah, it is. I wanted to say it was something else, honestly, because I like Wilder a lot, especially when he's working with Mel Brooks. But, I mean, it has to be
Willy Wonka.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a reason why we're still getting Willy Wonkas. It's arguably because of this performance is so iconic. So, the brilliance, though, is in the question, is Willy Wonka evil or not? This transforms every scene to be viewed in two ways. And the subtlety that becomes the defining feature for the film is why it is worth your time, folks, even in modern day. There's plenty that I have to pick with this film as far as its hippie stylings, or once again, we'll get to it, that LSD boat scene, which I actively really dislike. But especially in comparison to the Tim Burton 2005 rendition of this subtlety cannot be matched because Burton's rendition goes
I can't wait to hear
way in the deep end of stylistic. Yeah. Timothée Chalamet's Wonka is on the polar opposite of the spectrum, that it's so heartwarming. There's not an ounce of mystery of if Wonka's intentions are evil or anything other than wanting to bring joy into the world, which is, hey, totally fine, but that's why this one is such a performance that people don't want touched. Right.
It's a balancing act.
Exactly.
That hasn't been really met yet.
Exactly. Yeah. Comedically, Wilder is the best part too. Even though we get some dry styled British humor that feels appropriate for parents more so than kids, both kind of back then and now. I just love how sarcastic he is at all moments. I'm a trifle deaf in this ear is always a line that gets an audible laugh out of me. It's just so good, and the timing is so good, and again, he doesn't outwardly hate the kids. Like Johnny Depp's version hates the kids,
right,
and that's kind of the point. And I'll obviously break that down a little bit more when we get to Burton's rendition, but I think it's just something else. Wilder's performance. I think it's also a great bridge to music because his rendition of Pure Imagination is probably the best song in all three of these movies. The music is really great, and I think it's what holds up the most. This was a shocking revelation made only after seeing the I don't even know how to put it, the capital M musical that is the new Wonka. And I said to myself, wow, that had more music than ever, and probably the best music was still in 71, so I don't know what we're doing here. The film's music stuck with me all week, and I feel it proves itself as best for feeling and conjuring that child wonder that it captures, as opposed to Burton's twisted or King's Broadway soundtrack approach to it. Paul King, of course, being the director of the new Wonka, if I didn't mention that. But I have to circle back on why I feel 100% more than fine with updating this classic. I think it is in its leftovers 60s influence that covers many of the music numbers. For songs inside the factory, I don't know. I don't want to be overly mean, but they feel tacky to me. It's tacky, like Schoolhouse Rock styled read-along lyrics that pop up on screen.
Right, yeah.
I think these look terrible. I really do. I don't think they. I mean, maybe for a children's audience that is really looking to sing along with these, I guess it's fine.
It's an in-theater experience type thing.
Yeah. But it gives an otherwise timeless experience such a hippie vibe to it. It really tarnishes the timelessness aspect to it. This means we have to talk about that LSD boat scene, which is why for many, many years I outright just did not enjoy this film. I was a little bit of a hater on 71 Wonka.
A hater? Were you scared of it?
No, I think it is just like the most inappropriate scene possible. Like, believe me, I can get behind weird. I can get behind like
Sure.
Disturbing. I watch weird movies. This is what pisses me off about it is it just feels so grossly inappropriate to put in a children's movie because it is genuinely disturbing. Do you remember this?
Yes, I remember each scene basically. Now, how in depth and the minor.
I think we need to pause the episode so you can watch this LSD boat scene because it is shocking. It is shocking how disturbing and twisted and it does nothing for this question of is Wonka good or evil. It's just psychedelic. It's purely.
See, in 71, you're coming out, the Beatles. I mean, this is all just part of it. It's all just part of it. I bet in the time it was like extremely fitting.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's fitting for,
it's not fitting. Let's say that. I'm just saying back in 71, as far as the decision made.
It still kind of angers me today watching it. I mean, I don't think it's particularly well done. Mm-hmm. I think the rear projection of bugs eating and ripping apart flies and distinctly disturbing visuals put in front of these children, on top of then Gene Wilder ranting like a I don't know.
I wonder why, honestly.
Yeah.
Or could it be that thing of like we just up until the 90s or 2000s, we treated kids differently.
I guess
like the old Christmas books that were just about punishing kids.
Yeah.
The old German books and stuff.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I think that is definitely a theme throughout all these, well, not the new one, for the first two films, that, these wicked children are getting punished in some way,
Right.
By Willy Wonka. But man, let me tell you, I just cannot get over this scene. I think it is a serious blemish on the film still to today. Like, it doesn't age well. It doesn't look good. And I think where I have the real problem with it is it adds nothing to this this conversation piece about Wilder's performance of is he good, is he bad? It's almost unexpectedly chaotic. It's not even bad. It's just like, what is this?
But does that cement the fact that you were dealing with an evil character?
I guess, but I think if anything, this Willy Wonka is not evil. He's maybe a little bit misguided, but he's not like Depp's portrayal where he. It's like a mix between Michael Jackson and and like a deep hatred and disdain of children. So
it's like Saw for kids. That's exactly what this is.
I like that. Saw for kids. I really don't think a more perfect example could exist of where I am coming from, folks, on that something could use an update. Believe me, I don't like rehashes. I don't like the trend of Hollywood that ideas are just recycled endlessly and that there's nothing original ever. But at the same time, this film has some serious areas stylistically and tonally that could use some refreshing, if only to keep the attention of kids, no less actively scar them by this shit. But I don't know. I'll get over the scene a little bit, but it just proves to take a step too far in confusing us with Wonka, and that's really where my position is on it. My recommendation really boils down to this, folks. If you want a better Wonka performance and music, probably most importantly, this is the one you check out. But for its child performances, its visuals that feel dated, and style that feels scattered as well, that's where this can maybe push you into checking out a different rendition of Wonka. We'll get into the strengths of each of these, but my goal is to help you find the right Wonka for you, especially in just like a 3-slot episode like this. So despite some of my gripes on how timeless the package is, it still deserves a watch, if only for Gene Wilder, which is still the best Wonka. We're going to go ahead and give Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory 1971 a 73.
Wow. Oh, okay. All right. The 73 is a pretty good score.
I guess the
I was really bracing here. 73 is a very good movie.
Yes.
On the precipice of a very good movie.
I think it is a very good movie. I just got some gripes.
Semi shoes.
Yeah.
Some corrections that could be made. Wow. Okay. All right. So 73 is pretty damn good. I guess my only question for this one, for 71, is how do the set pieces hold up? Does it feel the main set decorations or that main kind of room, the chocolate waterfalls and such? Just looks like poopy water.
Yeah, it is poopy water. That's funny that you say it. Every person's observation ever of watching that poopy water drip down. I think I'm all right with the set designs just because of how that ramp up works to build such a messy, greedy, self-centered world.
Right.
And then he opens the door into pure imagination. I feel like that's where the execution of this film is a cut above. Certain sets are small, especially when you get, you're dwindling down the cast and you're going throughout the factory.
Right.
You are seeing more and more that these sets were not well funded at all. But I think by that time it's more about seeing where things go with Wonka and his clearly, declining mental state.
Looking at it, I was just like, oh, okay, this looks like a trippy, bad, falling apart miniature golf course.
Oh, I like that.
I
like that. Yeah.
But okay,
miniature golf course.
Let's go into this
edible golf
next
course.
film. Now, one other thing to be said about these remakes. If you are going to touch it, I just wish that they were on milestones.
Oh, okay.
Nothing was on an anniversary.
Yeah.
Even the new one, not the 50th anniversary, the 52nd anniversary. If you're going to touch a property like this, that is beloved.
Yeah.
Or at least that well known.
Yep.
Just care and consideration a little bit more is what all I ask. This next film came out in 2005. This is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Tim Burton. His boy Johnny Depp is the main guy. He is playing Willy Wonka. Again, I love
that you were scared.
Of course.
Scared.
Oh, it's freaky. The whole thing is freaky. The portrayer's freaky. He looks crazy in it. I mean, like you said, Michael Jackson and what? I mean...
Yeah. It really is a mix between Michael Jackson and... Which also for 2005, I feel like hits in a particularly bad way as well,
I remember vividly when it came out.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that it came out almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Totally remember it. It was put off then, still kind of put off now. The way it's shot and the way that people talk or just the way it's filmed is weird. I mean, his coloring on the film.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So... can I start with a quote from Gene Wilder on this film?
Sure.
Okay.
I definitely came across this.
Okay. there was a few quotes, and I just plucked one, essentially. So in an interview after this film came out, they asked Gene Wilder what he thought about it and everything like that. And he goes, "When I heard that Tim Burton was going to write it and direct it, I thought, this is going to be a dark film. Maybe a good one, but a dark one. I like Johnny Depp as an actor. I like him very much. But when I saw the little pieces in the promotions of what he was doing, I said, I don't want to see the film because I don't want to be disappointed in him." And that was his main thing. Really,
it's like a grandfather saying he's disappointed in you.
But I mean, but to your point about how much he cared about that character and how he wanted to portray him, I can only imagine he was insulted. Later he says it was an insult, the film, in another interview.
Yeah.
He's more against Tim Burton and his style and that Tim Burton type thing. That, do you want the Sweeney Todd guy? That's a great question, actually. That I'm spitballing as I think about this live. Was this more Nightmare Before Christmas or was this more Sweeney Todd?
More Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay.
I would say even more, it captures the tone. I mean, it's been forever since I've seen this film, but like in Edward Scissorhands, the first film that Burton and Depp are over, because it's like it's like looking at it wants to have a innocent type of feeling, a tone to looking at like a freak show almost. And at a lot of points, this movie pokes fun at Willy Wonka, pokes fun at the children in a cynical way, and that's just kind of Burton's thing. Honestly.
It is. I know. So okay, all right. So 2005's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, how'd you like it?
Well, I was not scared of this film when I was growing up. I actually, because I didn't like the original Willy Wonka, this was kind of my Willy Wonka. Yeah. I don't know about my thing, but
still rated PG.
Yeah, still rated PG. Unreal.
Right.
But Tom,
this film was meant for you. Yes, go ahead.
Tom, this film is bashed online for many, many reasons. On release, Johnny Depp's performance was outlandish and immediately hated by being a far cry from Gene Wilder's kind of uncertain approach, leaning way into the spectrum of Willy Wonka being a kind of an evil actor in this game. You would have to be blind not to tell, but it being directed by Tim Burton, he had haters back then and he has haters now, kind of living in a soft cancellation in modern day. And as for the film, critiques across the board point to Burton's styles being overbearing, garish, and perhaps a little bit mean-spirited in its intended childish wonder. This is not a world of pure imagination. This is a world of Tim Burton's imagination, which, again, I mean, I'm not a huge lover of this film. I did grow up with this, and this was, I don't know, my Willy Wonka, if you will. Mm-hmm. I'm not give a crap about that. But I feel like the style is what I appreciate about this film. It's not the execution of that style. It's got bad CGI. Right. Set design is a little bit all over the place. But I like the emphasis on more time with the kids. The kids themselves have bigger and livelier personas. Granted, that runs out of control because Willy Wonka is now a crazy, wild persona. There's nothing subtle about this performance. But at the same time, I feel like the package does have a follow-through that I'm still fine and I'm all right with this kind of being updated for
okay,
modern
all right, that's fine. All right.
I think most of all, it's Depp's performance reminding me of Michael Jackson. It's really
you were that much reminded. Wow.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I see it totally.
Yeah, and it's in some hand movements, and it's in how
his smiles and smirks and the way he talks.
Exactly, exactly. And I feel like in 2005, that's also what set a bad tone for this. I mean, this is like peak, not Michael Jackson controversy, but Michael Jackson being a parody within pop culture of, he touched kids.
For sure.
And when
interesting.
And when it comes to pairing this with Willy Wonka, that just feels like it's bad. It's just a bad idea. You know what I mean?
Depp didn't say in interviews he was going for Michael Jackson. Right?
No, I don't think so.
This is literally just oozes him.
It just oozes.
You can't stop thinking about Michael Jackson.
Absolutely. As far as Burton's style, I happen to enjoy his kind of blown out style, and with this coming out in 2005, I feel like it echoes so much of the weird and always on the verge of bad set design in kids' movies at the time. The Grinch and the Cat in the Hat movies come to mind. On top of that, Roald Dahl has always kind of existed in semi-Dr. Seuss's shadow as far as his films getting adapted or his stories getting adapted for film. But nostalgia glasses are full off on this one. If anything, it's because I stand by my belief that these movies can be updated for new kids, and this one does not even slightly escape that because it feels even older than the 71 version for how stylized it is. Once again, the hunt for the golden ticket is unleashed, and the world proceeds to go crazy for Wonka. This time, the first half focuses less on the wider story of the world and sprinkles in some backstory for Willy Wonka, giving us a possible explanation of motives behind such an odd man. We get to see his father, who is played by Christopher Lee.
Yeah, which I'm surprised to see that. And I was like, okay, that's cool.
You're right. If there was any reason for you to watch this.
Yeah, it was Christopher Lee.
It's in the It's in the bubble that is early 2000s Lord of the Rings. This also, the beginning also includes Wonka's relationship with many things being fleshed out. Him being a kid, an origin story for how he comes across the Oompa Loompas, and all leading to the biggest question I had: why the hell didn't they call this one Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Because it's more about Willy Wonka than ever. They really, I wonder as well in that process that Burton was so infatuated with Johnny Depp coming off of Captain Jack Sparrow for the first Pirates of the Caribbean, other characters that he's done like Edward Scissorhands, and wanted to make a movie more about Willy Wonka than ever. Yet it's called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Well, with the naming, you know what the funny thing was?
Yeah.
As I was putting these on the site, so the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, instead of, it wasn't the word "and" in the Chocolate Factory, it was the "and" symbol.
Okay.
So for licensing reasons, I was just like, wow, if they ever wanted to really redo this, whether it were Warner Bros. Or another person licensed out the material, they could still do Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Wow.
And just use the word "and" not have the symbol in there.
Wow. The legalese of Warner Brothers.
Maybe that's what they should have done here. But, when you watch this film, you didn't go into it really thinking it was about Charlie, right?
I mean, it is kind of about Charlie.
Right, it is about Charlie, but the things that stand out.
I feel like it's a weird strike of irony that this one is trying to play it so faithful to the book, yet is more about Willy Wonka than ever.
Right. Okay.
And we'll get into how this one tries to be almost overly faithful to the book and is kind of a damaging element to it. Like we've talked about a lot already, Depp's Wonka leans into what was so great about the mystery in Wilder's performances. Part of the loss in that mystery is because the runtime and the spotlight that is put on Johnny Depp is so large. We just get more time with him. We see Wonka in a flashback far before his reveal at the factory. We already have a hint at his motivations before we even get the first Oompa Loompa song. And all of this is driven home with Wonka being more openly disdainful towards the children than ever. I think for the blown out personas of the children who are snot-nosed brats.
They are, yeah.
Veruca Salt and all this stuff. I think that's where I'm all right with him being to your analogy, a Jigsaw, a Punisher. So that's where I'm all right with the very clearly snot-nosed brats getting their just desserts, pun intended, and Charlie being this quiet little angelic boy.
Right.
It's so cartoonish in how it's stretched out and how it's displayed on screen that I don't know. That's I think where I'm all right with it a little bit. This him just kind of hating the children. There's no good intention at all. So it makes perfect sense that Burton would want to make this more about the character, like I said, especially this being, I think, the third or fourth time working with Depp. Maybe I totally forgot about Sweeney Todd as well. Much like this entire film, it is just blown into tacky proportions that harshly date the film just as bad as the hippie stylings I was criticizing with the last one. It really just dates it so much as this early 2000s, like Grinch, like Cat in the Hat. The set design is just wild. It looks so plasticky, and what doesn't,
bad. Yeah.
It looks bad. I like the design of it. I don't like how it looks in execution, and part of that execution is just like really horrible 2005 CGI.
Yeah.
Like little things with CGI too. Little things like water, and it's just like you couldn't just.
That doesn't surprise me
take
at all.
a dip that day on set. I mean, I don't know. Like the CGI is awful, really awful. A lot of the smart and dry humor is completely swapped out with visual comedy, and this is where a lot, I think, of the set design shines. There are a lot of cute jokes in backgrounds of scenes and in edits leaning towards awkward situations. The reason why Burton's style works for me here is that it infects the whole world, including these personas of the five children. It's not just this separation of when you go into the chocolate factory. I think that's great. And for how that first film is designed with such a heavy ramp up to show us how Wonka affects the world, it's great to then step into the chocolate factory and it is truly something we haven't seen for the entire runtime. Here, the architecture is exactly on par with how Burton's films feel. They're very impressionistic. They're the buildings are all stretched. Wonka's factory is like this German brutalist nightmare. It really is.
It is a Tim Burton world.
Exactly,
big time. Yeah,
I like that follow through personally. I think the payoff that we get for having a stark separation of real world and the factory is a slight appreciation I have as an adult. I didn't really realize that as a kid, and I think as a kid I liked the style follow through in the entire film much more.
Interesting.
So, and still to today. On rewatching this, certainly there is something to be said about that separation, almost having a Wizard of Oz type of reveal in switching things over. But I think having it all tied together in this Burton aesthetic makes for a stronger film, and the kids are proof of that, being a lot more snot-nosed, which suits the cynical tone of the film. And I think I like the kids' performances much better as well. Charlie, most of all. I actually didn't write down his name. He's still acting today. I think he's in
Freddie
TV.
Highmore.
Yes. And he's just like such an angelic little boy. Like he really, really wasn't harm a fly. And I don't know. That could definitely be seen as something that is too cartoonish for some people. I think it worked just fine, especially when making the kids just as interesting as Willy Wonka.
Right.
The two real blemishes here are, like I said already, the film is a CGI nightmare at times, like a nightmare, and most critically, the music. The music really sucks in this one.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. This was an enlightening rewatch because I remember so much just being fine as far as CGI goes, and now was just borderline unacceptable. Like I was like having trouble getting through it. It was that bad. The 2005 CGI is just used extensively, from shrunken sizes of the Oompa Loompas to factory machinery, and even simple things, like I said, like water. It's like you can't... I mean, we're paying for their time. They can't just take a dip that day. Like, I don't know. For all the praise I can give to set design, it really takes you out of it when this CGI creeps on screen. Most of all was discovering the issues I had with the music, and it was multi-stage disappointment. There was... I had like 3 waves of, oh no, when I realized what was going on with this music. Oh yeah.
Lyrically? Or instrumentally?
Yeah, just in the research of it. You know, on top of experiencing how wonderful the original movie soundtrack was, it became extra salt in the wound with a soundtrack I knew I already didn't really love. Songs have more of a variety, but are exclusively delegated to the Oompa Loompas and stick out as minimal effort in what is meant to be a musical. This is in stark contrast with Paul King's Wonka that we're covering in just a second, where it is such a musical, like you can't escape the songs. Next, I find out that the crappy lyrics are actually matching the original lyrics in the Roald Dahl book. So I'm like, great, I don't like the book either. Great, I don't like anything about this.
I mean, I appreciate the follow-through then of the written material. I'm okay with that.
You'd think it would be better. Turns out, no. Turns out Roald Dahl is no lyricist. He was like a fighter pilot. He's not writing songs. Worst of all, the third slip, the snow crashing over me, is guess who I find out does the music? None other than one of my favorites, Danny Elfman. And I'm like, I guess I don't like Danny Elfman anymore.
He sings too.
Yeah.
He's the voice of the Oompa Loompas, I believe.
Oh, really?
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, these songs, just listen
trash.
to them. The trash.
Yeah, Danny Elfman. I mean, those two are a pair.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, going back to the Batman movies.
Yeah, Burton and Elfman.
Yeah, it's just such a disappointment.
Well, you know, once in a while you got to miss. You know, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, true. And also, I understand that I'm in the minority of really rooting for Danny Elfman. I don't think many people are like, oh yeah, gotta see a movie because he's doing the soundtrack.
I mean, there are some Nightmare Before Christmas guys that are big Elfman Elfman people. I'm sorry.
It was a slippery slope. It was just a terrible discovery after terrible discovery with this. So, folks, this is a little bit worse of a product, but one that might fit the bill, depending on the stylings that you like with this. If you don't particularly care for the dated style or even some of the tone of the first film, this might be your Wonka. A worse performance from Johnny Depp, but in concept and in style, it creates a different type of magic to the world. Yes, a cynical one. Yes, maybe like a goth emo one a little bit. But I still think one that is effective at telling a children's story just leans in a little bit too much of the hatred of children. Best of all, I think this has a better kid performance across the board than what we get in the original and even in the new one for Wonka with Timothée Chalamet, which can add a lot in enjoying this cynical ride in Burton's rendition. But most of all, if it's about the kids and it's about maybe telling a parable, a tale of how to behave through these kids, I think these performances even drive it home a little bit better for that reason. We're going to go ahead and give Charlie and the Chocolate Factory 2005 a 64.
Okay, 64. I think you're being very nice today.
I am.
You're in a jolly mood. I like that, though, because if the original is at 73, 64, okay. Man, yeah, I don't know. Maybe one day I'll get around to watching it, and I can't imagine I'm going to like it still.
I cannot believe. I knew this walking into this week. I would have told you to watch it.
I'm not the biggest Tim Burton fan.
Sure.
I'm not Johnny Depp when he's like this.
Right.
Okay, and if I'm not a fan of musicals. Do you like
Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp? Because this is, I feel like he got this right off the back of the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, he's hot right here.
Yeah.
But, I love that. I love his Captain Jack Sparrow in that first original especially, but this is no Captain Jack Sparrow.
Right.
Apparently this is
Child Predator, Willy Wonka.
All right, 64%. So, folks, before we get on to the new film in theaters, we just want to remind everybody that the daily ratings here is completely producer supported. So, we're not going to deal with corporate advertising or pitch you products we don't care about. We don't want to deal with like tier structures or paywalls and things like Patreon, where you give a little bit and we give you something extra. You give even more and we give you something even more. Basically, and the reason why is $5 to you is totally different than the next person to the next person. So we're going off the value for value model. So if you're finding value in all this and whatever we're doing here at the Daily Ratings, what is that? What's that number to you? And you can go to thedailyratings.com, you go to the donations tab, and you can just donate that amount our way. Write in a note along with it, and we're going to read it right here in this segment. So whether you have comments or critiques or questions, whatever, if you're helping us produce the Daily Ratings, if you are a producer, we care about that, and we really appreciate it, and we are absolutely going to address whatever you have to say or questions we would love to answer and everything. So, again, it's at dailyratings.com. You go to the donations tab, and that's how you become a producer, through monetary support through your donations. Also, if you're interested, at the bottom of the website, you can sign up for our newsletter. So our newsletter comes out every week, every Tuesday morning. This past week was the short story version, so you get an idea of what Vin is going to be covering this week if you want to follow along or watch. And you also get the top 5 latest of the box office. Next week, then, will be the epic version of the newsletter. Basically, it's much more. There's a lot more material in it. It's a great read. You know exactly what's going on in the movie making world, and there's some fun stuff in there as well. But if you sign up for that, we're going to have the big box office, kind of the yearly box office totals for next week, and then when we do the Tom Dailies after that, we'll give you all the winners and the lists so that you can hang on to that.
Yeah,
right. Anyway, like I said, it totally value for value, totally producer supported. So we thank all of you who have produced in the past, and we're looking forward and hope that so many of you will in the future. If you could also just tell somebody about us, keep us in the conversation, keep our name out there. That's where we want to be. So, all right, Vin, with that, let's move on to our newly released. This is Wonka, directed by Paul King. And like I said, I actually had some interest in this film. One, because I do like Timothée Chalamet.
Sure.
I know in my heart it's going to be better than Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But the director I have respect for. I have never seen the Paddington films.
Yeah.
But over and over and over, once a year I go into the reviews because I'll see it on a critic write-up or something.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just like, there's no way these kid movies are that good. Like,
Right.
Really? There's 100% 5 out of 5s?
Sure.
There's no chance.
Sure.
But it apparently is so that these Paddington movies, both 1 and 2, are like incredible.
Yep.
And those are directed by Paul King. This is directed by Paul King. What did you think of Wonka?
Well, I think it was a very safe movie. I haven't seen the Paddington movies either, but I feel like if there was going to be a new voice to tackle this children's classic, and specifically one veering away from what we got in 2005, the man that blew critics' minds with Paddington 1 and 2 was going to be the guy, and that's Paul King. Paddington 1 and 2 in 2014 and 2017, respectively, just had such a heartwarming aspect to it that I really, honestly, with this being a 3 slot, I was going to watch Paddington 1 and 2 for the 2 other ones. Didn't get around to it this week, but certainly would be happy to do so if there's interest among you folks at home. If you're in a similar spot, not that like any of us fall into Paddington's demographics, but if you're in a similar spot of being like, why is there such hype around this?
Apparently they're incredible.
Yeah.
and a good kids movies is also good for adults.
Sure.
And January and February are going to be dry for us. We'll be looking for material.
Watching Paddington.
There is Paddington 3 coming out. Paddington in Peru, not directed by Paul King.
Oh, not directed by Paul King. Interesting. Okay. I think it's an important factor to note because I feel like everyone's reaction to even the mainstream audience of the Wonka brand was, oh, you mean the Johnny Depp one? That's the weird one. And I feel like that's everyone's approach to this film series. So weird does not sell $1 billion. And heartwarming is a much safer tone to shoot for in this depiction of Wonka. This warps Wonka into much more of a Broadway affair. Heavy emphasis on music, feeling like an imitator of the Disney villain spotlight movies that we see every now and again.
Okay.
And certainly that way in the way that it is just filled to the brim with Easter egg callbacks to the book, to things that Gene Wilder said, and everywhere in between, basically.
In a nauseating way or in a cute way?
Almost in an inconsequential way, because I don't think anyone would really pick it up unless you recently watched the 2000 or the 1990
71.
Wow, I can. Thank you. The 71 one. But because it was so fresh in my mind, I was like hyper tuned into it. So I'm just gonna say I don't know. It was definitely Easter eggs.
They're there for the fan.
Yes, they're there for it. So and I think that's personal tolerance. I didn't find them to be nauseating. It just I did find them to be very recognizable. Let's chat about Timmy right away. Actually, I forgot if I said this on the podcast, but if I had to think of what is his standout performance, or is there a standout performance, what would it be? I don't know. What are your thoughts, Tom?
I'm definitely going to say not Dune.
Yeah.
Because it's such little talking.
Right.
Like he's fine in the
Paul
performance.
Atreides is meant to be like an open palette for his journeys to shape him.
Man, that is a good question.
It's not like character acting with Timmy.
No, I mean, honestly, he was the best part of Don't Look Up.
Okay.
But very supporting role.
Right,
Very small role.
Yeah.
You saw him in... not Bodies, the human eating film this past year, right? Bones and All.
Bones and
All. I think that was 2023.
Yeah. Oh, 22. And then Bones.
What came to mind for you?
Nothing. That's what I'm saying.
I know I like him.
Yeah, I definitely like Chalamet too, but I think what surprised me quite a bit is Wonka is quite the character to pull off. So it surprised me that he would be chosen for this. By the first moments on screen, you will realize that this is less about giving a creative performance or interpretation for Wonka, less about maybe Chalamet being or starring in such a strong character role, and it is more about being a vehicle for songs. This is a vehicle for songs that we'll see in the talent around these songs. I don't think they're necessarily bad, but we'll put a pin in that for now. Performance-wise, as for Wonka, I guess he's doing kind of a southern accent. He slips in and out of his normal voice, which I think was totally fine, and gives a slightly southern twang that makes him sound like Holly Hunter from The Incredibles, the mom from The Incredibles. I mean,
that's weird a choice.
It's odd. It's a twang that he brings in every now and again.
He's going for like American accent the entire time, right?
Yeah,
like not British at all. He's dropping it.
Yeah. It's normal. It's normal Chalamet, and then it's
slightly southern twang. Chalamet.
Exactly. So a little odd, but this depiction of Wonka once again shifts to the other side of the spectrum. If anything, I really kind of wrote these reviews for me because in the middle you have Wilder sitting and not leaning too far into creepy, not leaning too far into schmaltzy, heartwarming. Depp falls all the way to the creepy side, and now with Chalamet we have it all the way on the heartwarming side. There is not a bad bone in this man, and granted, it's a younger depiction of Wonka, so that maybe makes sense.
That was my big question because it is younger.
Yes,
he is younger. And that's what they're going for. Is it just supposed to be like? Is this a Wonka origin story?
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
And that's where I compare it to like the villain spotlight movies with Disney. Like they're trying to be. They're trying to take a character and make a whole, a whole movie out of it.
Is it told to us then, is the point of this film is we see why Wonka develops a dark side through the process of, getting bigger and bigger?
Sure. Maybe some distrust of his fellow chocolatiers around him. But
right.
No, not really. This is a very
through and through
schmaltzy, heartwarming affair.
See, I would have liked to see the other thing.
Yeah.
I would like to see him, what happened to Wonka through his life that makes him...
That he maybe picks up a chip on the shoulder or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if anything, this fully illustrates the family-friendly tone that this is going after. I feel like Warner Brothers executives sat down. They say we want the exact opposite of what Burton did in 2005.
PG means something different now.
yeah, exactly. So if anything, to the point of that it's so safe and so friendly that I really don't imagine this capturing the. I'm trying not to say imagination as much as possible this episode, but capturing the attention of kids nowadays just because it feels like everything else a little bit.
Okay.
But again, that ties mostly into my feelings on the music. So in Wonka, we see a young Willy Wonka, bright-eyed and naive, traveling to a city to sell his miraculous chocolates. His genius is not met with open arms, however, as upon arriving, he is fed to a city run by profiteering capitalists and grifters on the street trying to get one up on each other. The only thing that he has is his good intentions and the best chocolate making techniques in the world. So pretty lucky coming out of the gate. As he teams up with a band of misfits to bring all of their dreams alive through the power of imagination. One aspect I really enjoyed was the different candies that Wonka makes in here, which became closer to spy gadgets in the film over the course of the movie. This is where I think like you would actually love this. Because he has like these different candies, but because he's not trying to like sell all of them, he has just these template candies that he's made one or two times, and he's like, oh yeah, this does something that tells people to brainstorm correctly, or tell the truth,
funny.
Or put them asleep, and things like that. So I feel like the imagination around the chocolates and whatnot captured something new and fresh and fun for the audience. His chocolates have more magic than ever now, and while there are classic ones that we can recognize for the Easter eggs, like the floating fizzy lifting drink being in a chocolate, he has all sorts of new ones that were just so creatively used. It's also a cute reason for some of the musical breakouts in the film that is basically explained, and anyone that sees this film, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it said one or two times is that the reason why people are singing and dancing in a musical is because the chocolate is just that good. There was no singing and dancing in the city before Wonka arrived, which I think is a very cute explanation of why a musical is a musical. I think that's really great.
Yes, yes, and a big reason why I typically hate musicals.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, I think everything done around chocolatiering, if you will.
Yeah, I like that play.
Yeah, there's a lot of love put into that, and a lot of fresh new material in ways that we wouldn't really see, if anything, in my comparison to the Disney origin kind of story movies that you get with this. So, the music, however, feels very, very generic. The Broadway bland that we have called and referred to on the past in the podcast. And it's a big problem because the film's skeleton is more of a musical than either of the last two films. I mean, this is a packed soundtrack. Characters are always breaking out into song. The plethora of new songs that were written all just, they sound the same. They sound identical to each other, to the point that in my note-taking process, I always listen to the soundtracks. There's a 26-track soundtrack with this. And folks, put on the first 8, and you tell me when the song starts and stops.
It's that similar.
It's that similar.
So it's almost like let us get our banger, like let us make our one, and then everything else from that.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess that's the way that you make a musical soundtrack these days. The songs themselves were written by Neil Hannon, and the composing was done by Joby Talbot. I think it's very telling on Talbot's side. He's coming from the very successful Sing franchise. That will give you an idea of the tone of this as well. It's trying to be very uplifting and inspiring. And it's not that the songs aren't nice. I'm not trying to just kick something for being family friendly. If anything, there are some very cute moments and that fit into the schmaltzy feel of the movie. But they all, and I mean all of them, they all sound the same. The Oompa Loompa song, the everything sounds the same.
Really?
Oh yeah.
See, that's a shame because I just things are dead today. It kind of feels. And if you're going to redo Wonka, and this is this big corporate stuff where it's like, all right, what else do we have in the bin? Okay, let's go ahead. We'll do a Wonka one. It's been enough years now.
Yep.
But really, what would be nice, it's such a separate thing from that 71 version, where that main Wilder song, when he comes out, like you said, that's the best song. It's the best thing.
Oh, pure imagination. Can't be touched.
Of all these three. I mean, 50 years later, everyone can kind of sing that tune a little bit.
Yep.
And, 50 minutes later, no one is singing probably a tune from this film.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have a platform for that or a jumping off movie to once again have something that can happen again like that, this would be the film. It's very much like we all can hum the Star Wars theme. I could do Lord of the Rings, no problem. A bunch of different songs.
A bunch of
right.
An example of that being every song.
But the original Star Trek, we all know that tune a little bit. But when you get into the more modern stuff, it's "Sing Me the Avengers" tune.
Sure.
And people aren't going to know that, and that's the problem with these modern day films, where just the energy and the heart isn't in there, and all the corporatism is. It's just a shame because this should be the film that kids can remember for years and years and decades.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely what it was shooting for. But I found myself becoming numb to these music scenes because they all blurred together in such a forgettable way. So much so that part of the reason why I put the soundtrack on for my note process was to determine if some of the songs that Chalamet is singing were actually separate songs, or was he returning to them in a Oompa Loompa style, it's a variation on the same song. So I could imagine, I should say, Warner Brothers not wanting to take risk, especially after the Danny Elfman fiasco, we'll call it. But seriously, folks, listen to even just a quarter of this soundtrack, and you will be shocked how one song painfully and indistinctly blends into another. I'm going to stop calling it Broadway bland and really insult this style of movies and call it Cocoa Melon Syndrome. This feels like children's baby music with how formulaic it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like
he's
that.
done with it. Maybe Cocoa Melon will get us in the algorithms a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I wish that it wasn't such a big factor in my score of this film, but I really can't stress enough. This movie has more of an emphasis on its musical element than ever, than the first one, and definitely the 2005 Burton one. I'm happy to see that Paul King is doing something new here. and making such a touching experience for a family musical. Again, if there was any takeaway coming from this, is that I wanted to see more from King. But if I had to bet on it, I don't think this hits for anyone outside of a very small kid demographic and a holiday Christmas time theater go around of, hey, we got to see something in theaters, kill some time, let's just go see Wonka. Especially, this does not hit for the crowd that holds the original movie on this untouchable pedestal, which, again, hopefully over the course of these 3 reviews, you can kind of see where I'm coming from in that I don't think they're bulletproof. I don't think they're untouchable.
Yeah.
I feel like if it is going to be all a PG or G rated movie, guess what? You are catering to one demographic that is the modern day kids that are going to be seeing this and find their own Wonka in that way. And that's what brings me to the thought that I had all week for this episode. I think it is more than fine to update this property for modern kids, but I'm not sure that this one grabs the attention of those kids for how safe and how bland it feels. We're going to go ahead and give Wonka a 56.
Wow, the worst one?
The worst
one?
Yeah.
I was so sure of myself. Wow, 56%. Okay.
Yeah.
Blandness, like you said.
Blandness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, let me say with that, and this is obviously getting into the splitting hairs that all close scores are. Realistically, I do think this is still a good movie. It's landing positive of 50. I just feel like it doesn't escape and do anything exceptionally well to get it above those 60s.
Right.
But still a good movie, and certainly for the family focus. This is where a lot of family movies fall on the ratings.
And does this one feel the most Christmassy?
I think the Burton one does.
Burton
one's got enough snow. I think they have a family dinner.
I should have watched it. I should have watched it.
You should have watched it. You should have.
And Timmy was good in it. Timothy Chalamet was good.
Yes, I think beyond my gripes of is he trying a character? Is he not? No, he's still good in this. He's still definitely on par with everything that we've seen with Chalamet.
And I guess we might have to do a Timmy study then too. I mean, even go through his IMDb. It's just like I guess I see him a lot less than I thought.
Right.
But he is out there.
He is out there. I don't get me wrong. It's not like I want him to be like a Jim Carrey all of a sudden or something like that.
Absolutely not.
But obviously his brand is kind of staying cool.
I hope
it just surprised me, this casting.
Yeah, I hope that he goes more. Oh my God, not Ryan Reynolds. Cool guy.
Ryan Gosling.
Yes, I hope he goes more Ryan Gosling route.
Oh, sure.
I mean, the one thing, or Leo. I mean, the one thing, I forget what Timmy's movie was that came out, and then it was released. Just he had a private conversation with DiCaprio, and DiCaprio said something like, "No superhero movies and no hard drugs," and that's what he told him, or like no capes and no hard drugs or something. And I was like, yes,
great.
Thank you.
It's great.
Okay, Vin. All right. So looking at these films here, any lasting notes?
I have a side tangent.
Yeah, please take it.
Okay. So is it just me, or is Awkwafina in every single cartoon? Like every single
Awkwafina
cartoon.
is everywhere.
It feels like what I imagine it felt like for seeing Rosie O'Donnell in every movie, in every kid's movie.
What cartoon now is she in?
She's in the new Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah,
she
that makes sense.
is a bit character in, I think it's called Migration, the duck one from Illumination.
Yes,
which
yes.
I is not even on our list to cover, but it's probably going to be the biggest movie this month.
Well, you would think so.
Yeah.
Illumination did it. That's not the one that's
Despicable
Kubo.
Me. No.
Right. Okay.
Can't sing.
That could be a January. That could be a January watch.
I don't want to watch it at all.
Well, we could pair that up with Paddington. Maybe it's good.
It's just good.
But no, and Awkwafina was also in the not Free Willy. What is the one that we did in summer? She plays the duck, I believe, in the oh my God, Little Mermaid.
Yes, she plays the seagull.
Yes.
She's just in.
And is she in more?
She's just in everything.
Okay.
I like Awkwafina too. I think she's funny, but like I think she's destroying her brand. Like
she was in that Renfield movie.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
But okay, we'll keep it. You did. I remember you.
This is why we cut tangents usually in the edit. Because one of us will make a hot take and then it doesn't land on the other side, and then we're like, all right, we'll move on.
No, I mean I totally agree with you. Awkwafina is everywhere.
She's the Rosie O'Donnell of 2023.
Which I really want to agree with that statement if I knew where the Rosie O'Donnell thing was coming from.
Just that.
Was it like 2002? She was like, Rosie O'Donnell was it? She had the Rosie O'Donnell show.
Right. Well, no, more so like Nickelodeon. She was like in every Nickelodeon film, every Disney film as a voice actor specifically.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Maybe it's a pass. Maybe this won't make it in the cut at all. So
anything else to touch on?
No, that's the one.
Well, okay. So maybe we should talk about the rest of the year. We have some of the biggest films of the year coming out.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it earlier. We have Super Episode coming out.
Yes, we have Super Episode.
2 weeks from now, it's go ahead.
Uber Episode is. You want me to just rattle through them?
No, because if something drops off for whatever reason we can't watch, then we're going to be screwed.
Right.
But basically, they're all new release films. It's going to be 8, 9, 10 films in one episode.
Yeah.
So, just listen to a little bit here or there, just to the movies that you care about, skip around. That's totally fine. That's why the episode's there. Mm-hmm. But it's there's not going to be films that we left out anymore for the year 2023. We are covering everything.
Yeah.
And so many of these new releases in December. It's just wild. And then the week after that, 3 weeks from now, on January 11th,
yep.
That's when the Tom Dailies are going to come out. And we're going to be ready to go. We're going to have everything watched. We're going to be locked and loaded. So, again, that's why we're going to have that mega episode the week before. And next week is going to be great because we have kind of curated a lot of the greats of 2023 just to catch everybody up. Have that episode right there for everyone to listen to because, again, the awards are around the corner, and we're the only ones that matter here.
We are the only ones on the ball.
All right, Vin, thank you so much for watching these Wonka films. Folks at home, we'll run it down one more time. We have Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with a 73%, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory with a 64%, and finally, Wonka with a 56%. Folks, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. Hey, if you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating or tell a friend about us, because we'd appreciate it. And just a reminder, folks, that Daily Ratings is also completely producer-supported. We want to stay from advertising, and we don't want to have any paywalls or any tier structures or subscriptions. It's all just value for value. So, are you finding any value in the things that we're doing here at the Daily Ratings? Then become a producer and donate whatever amount of value that is. And just go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. And while you're at it, you can check out the rest of the films that we have on this site. So, folks, thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.